Hello everyone, welcome back to the class. In the previous video, we learned how to create the tables based on the class diagram. In this video, we are going to learn how to create simple queries to answer some business questions. So first, please open your database that you have created following the previous video. So if you haven't opened your database for a while, when you first open it, you might see this type of security warning. So we can click Enable Content. And then we will trust this document so that we can work on it. If you want, you can go back and check your tables to make sure that you have all the records entered in here. So let's take a look at the first question from your database project. So the first question is asking you which customers have ordered products in March 2020. So we are going to create a query that can answer this question. What is a query? So a query is basically connecting the tables in your database and selecting the records in your tables that matches certain criteria. For example, in this question, we are looking at which customers have ordered products in March 2020. So we will be looking at the order date and time and identify the products that were made that has an order date in March 2020. And because this query is going to show customer ID, username, and order date, we need to identify all the tables that contain all this information. So for the order date and time, it's included in the order. And for the customer ID and username, they actually exist in your table, in your customer table. So in this query, we are going to link this to table, identify the orders that matches the criteria of being ordered in March 2020, and find out what is the customer ID, username, and also the order date and time for those orders that is meeting our criteria. So before we start to create a query, the most important thing is that we need to identify which tables we need for this query. So we can start by looking at the requirement of the question. In this question, it says we need to show customer ID, username, and order date. So what we will do is we will go into our class diagram and then look at where these attributes are, so which table they are in. So as we talked about, customer ID, they're in the customer table, username, they're in the customer table, and order date, they're in the order table. So now we know that for this two table colored in light orange, we know that these two tables are required. And the next thing we need to look at is whether there is a connection or a relationship that can connect these two tables together so that we can link the records with each other. So now we can see that these two tables are well connected because the customer ID is serving as a foreign key in the order table. So we're all set. Basically, we just need to use this two table and then we will query this two table. So how do we do it in Access? So let's click Create and then click Query Design. And now for the tables, we are only going to include the tables that we need for this query. So we will choose Customer. So you can double click it or click on it and then click Add. And then we will click on the order table as well. So sometimes you might accidentally double click on the customer again, then you will see that there is an unnecessary duplicate table created here. You can actually remove this one by right clicking on it and choose Remove Table. Sometimes you might find out that, for example, you only added customer table and you're missing the order table. What you can do is you can right click on the empty space and then click Show Table and then add the order in here again. So now we have the tables ready in here. The next thing is that under here for the field, we will identify the attributes that we want to show in the query or in the report. So we will look at our requirement here. So we need customer ID, username, and order date. So we would choose, double click on customer ID, and then you will see that the customer ID will show down in the field here. And then we will choose username. So once we double click username, we will see the username down here in the field as well. Then we will choose the order date and time. So now we will see once we double click order date and time, it goes into the field again. So now we have all the three attributes selected. If you click run, so basically if you click run, now you will create a query that will connect the customer table with order table and show you what is the customer ID and the username and also the order date and time of an order. So if you click run, this will show you all the orders with their customer ID, username, and order date and time. Now let's take a look at our question. So our question is asking which customers have ordered products in March 2020. So this tells you that we have a selection criteria for the order date and time. So we should only be showing the orders that were made in March. So we should not see the ones created in April. How can we tell Access to do so? So we can go back to our design view. So basically, we just need to simply type our criteria in the field of the criteria row and under the order date and time column. So what does ordering a product in March 2020 means? So this means that your order should be made after February 29th and before April the 1st, right? So all the orders that created in between are the orders made in March 2020. So all we need to do is just to copy this criteria and then paste it in the criteria here. Oops, sorry. I'm using the virtual desktop, so I'm not able to directly copy and paste. What we can do is we can also type it in. So your order should be made after. So for after a date, you should be using the bigger than sign. So we will say February 29th, 2020. And the second criteria is that this should be made before April the 1st. So it should be, the date should be less than or smaller than April 1st, 2020. And then you press enter. So now you see that Access is very smart. So it automatically corrects the format for our date. So it adds like hashtag before and after a date. So now if you run this query again, you will see that only the ones that is meeting our selection criteria will be kept in here. So basically, all the orders that are made in March 2020 will be showing here. So now we are done with this query. So let's save this query first. So usually I would save the query name by the question name so that I don't get confused later on. So this is for question 1 in your database project. So we can save as question 1. So now we can also generate a report based on this query, because if you look at the query result right now, it's just in a plain table. So it's not very well designed, or like visually it's not very ideal. So we can actually create a nicely designed report. Let's say if you're showing this to an executive, you might want to show it in a better presentation, right? So we can click create and then choose report. So in the report, you can change a lot of different things. For example, you can change this one to question 1, orders, or like customers who made an order in March. You can play around with the report. Maybe you will create a better one than what I have in here. Okay, so if you want, you can also make this one wider so that it will show the entire time. So we can make some changes if you want in here to make it a better presentation. And you can see how it looks like. So basically this will be how it looks like in here. So now you can feel free to change the format in here with whichever you like. And then we can save this report. So again, I will save this as question 1. So click OK. So now basically we are all done with question 1, and we know that customer Monica and customer Ross are the ones who made orders in March. We can close both so that our working space is a bit cleaner. So the next question we have in here is create a query and a report to answer the question, which customers have returned products in bad condition? You must show at least 3 customers. The report should show only customer ID and username. So similar as the previous question, we are going to identify the tables and the attributes that we need to answer this question. So because we want to show the customer ID and username, so we know that we need the customer table. That's why we color it as light yellow, light orange. And also our question is which customers have returned products in bad condition. So we need to look at the return condition attribute. That's why we need the return table, and now we are coloring it in light orange to show that we need this table. So we are done with the first step. So we identify the tables and the attributes that we need to answer this question. The next step, similarly as the previous question, is we need to identify whether we have the connections or the relations between these 2 tables. So clearly, right now, customer is not connected with return. The connection they have is via other tables. So we see that we can connect customers with the order table, and then the order table will connect to the order line table. The order line table then connects to your return table. That's why, although we are not using any attributes in order or order line table, we still need to include them in our query so that Access can build the connection between the customer table with the return table, and so that we can answer our business questions with the required attributes. So let's do it in Access. So again, click Create, and we are going to create a query, right? So query design. So when we are showing table, as we have talked about, we are going to need to use customer, order line, and return. So we will choose customer, order line, and return. Click Close. Now you see that these 4 tables are linked. That's how you can link the customer table with the return table. So now we are going to identify the attributes that we need for this query. So customer ID, username, and return condition. So we will choose customer ID, username, and return condition. So now if you run this query, you find out all the customers and their username with the return condition. So we are not done yet because our question is which customers have returned products in bad condition. So we know that we need to do a criteria selection in here as well. So click change your view to design view. And this time for the criteria, we are going to type no. Because remember when we create when we created this attribute, we used the yes or no. So basically if it's yes, then the condition is good. If it's no, then the condition is not good. So in here, we want to find out the ones who are in a bad condition, so we will choose no. So now we can run this query, and this will show you only the customer who has returned a product in a bad condition. You see the return condition is not checked, so we know this is a product that has been returned in a bad condition. Are we all done yet? No. Why? Let's take a look at our requirement. So our requirement says that it should only show your customer ID and username. So we don't want to see the return condition in here. So what we can do is that we can go back to the design view and add that requirement in here. So if you look at your field in here, there is one row called show. The show means that do you want this column to show in your query result or not? So in here, although we are using this attribute as our criteria, we can choose not to show it in the result or the report. So we will just click uncheck the show. And now if you run it, you'll see that only the customer ID and the username is showing in our result, but still we know that it has already done the selection for only keeping the returns that are in a bad condition. By now, we are all done with this query. So we met every requirement in our question. So we did answer the question which customer have returned products in bad condition, and we only show the customer ID and username. So now we can save this query. This is for question 2. So we can type in question 2, click OK. And again, we can create a report for it. So we can click create and then choose report. And we can say this is question 2, customers who have returned bad products. Or you can change to another name. I know you're better than I am in coming up with like a summary of your question. So now we can click save and then save it as question 2 and click OK. So now we are done with answering this question. So these two are simple queries that we can use to answer our business question. As you can see in this query, all we are doing is that we are pulling up the tables that we need. So basically identifying what information we want to know and then finding out which tables this information are in, and then we pull the data from those tables, and all we are doing is just identify the criteria and then apply that criteria when we are searching in our database. So for the next video, we are going to learn something a little bit more complicated. So besides adding certain criteria, we can also run aggregate functions. For example, we can run summary, we can run max, we can also run math calculations in our query. So I hope so far you're enjoying playing with Access. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.